Hi girls, welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddee P. I'm your host, Maddee P girl. How's it cracking, queen? I missed you. And aren't you excited today? Because there's a smile on this young woman's face. Yeah, there is. It's beaming. I've been having a rough couple weeks. We'll talk about it. Because I tell you apparently everything. It just came to my attention actually that I am real and I post on the internet. From time to time I forget. Just like, can I tell y'all some piece of information you shouldn't know? My real name is Margaret. That's my government name. Yeah. You probably shouldn't know that, but you do know. And every once in a while, every few days I wake up and I'm like, my name is fucking Margaret for real. They used to call me Mad Dog or Margie P. Ho. I didn't even know what that meant until I said it to my dad. Or no, Margie 3. Margie 3. Sorry. I called myself Margie P. Ho or somebody else did. I don't know. Okay. I'm getting crazy and antsy today. Margie 3. Didn't know what that meant. Told my dad. It's a football player. How did we get on this topic? I don't know. Me recognizing that I'm real. You know, and every couple of days someone says something about the podcast or about my TikTok and I'm like, oh yeah. My face is all over the internet. Just over here in my own little world for real. And if you ever want to start posting stuff, that's the vibe you need to have. Like, just like it's Instagram. Like, yeah. Everyone doesn't post a podcast once a week and post a day in my life like every day. I've been on that shit, y'all. I've been grinding. And yeah, I'm real. So that's just been discovered. Haven't been feeling that real, you know, the past few weeks, if you will. As in like, I exist for real. Okay, moving on. Rough start. You know, and that's what warm-ups are for. That wasn't even a warm-up. Okay. I can't. I honestly can't today, but I'm beaming and I'm happy about it. Jane Goodall's dead. She's dead? Yeah. Jane Goodall is my person that if you were to say like, you know the videos where people take videos of their parents and they're like, Kris Jenner dead at the age of 30 and they're like 50. They're like and they panic. That's me with Jane Goodall except for it was real life and she's actually dead. Yeah, she was 90 or something, but she transcends time, which is crazy because apparently me with the monkey situation was clipped several times last week. Okay. We all know my thing with monkeys. I don't need to reiterate that. You understand my fear. You get it. And you know, there's something there. Maybe it's deep down. I know she is fearless because she can just be with those monkeys for real. And I've always loved Jane. So rest in peace, Jane. And I'm so glad that her field did not murder her. Like I feel like Steve Irwin, a lot of these motherfuckers die at the hands of whatever they were trying to do. Skydivers, whatever. No, Jane was for real one of those monkeys. She was with them. She was accepted. She was their fearless leader. And there's something so inspiring in that. Now, speaking of animals, Chunk won. That's right, Chunk won. If you don't know what I'm talking about, get a grip. Hey, get a grip. Fat Bear Week in Alaska. And Flotato was taken out. There was conspiracy. Don't know if I said this last week. There's conspiracy that Flotato was taken out due to him being listed under a number and not his government name, Flotato. But Chunk won. If you don't know Chunk, he broke his jaw last season, if you will, season. We're now in off season. And he could barely eat a salmon, y'all. He is inspiring. I think now that I'm thinking about all this, I just gravitate towards the inspiring things because sometimes I just don't want to be awake like that, for real. So I just live off of others inspiring me. Chunk being one of them. And let me tell you, he's a honker and I'm so proud of him. We love you, Chunk, over around these parts. Also, I just found out. Okay, so you guys know I'm uneducated. I don't think that's in the question. I'm emotionally there, emotionally intelligent. Some things are just, I don't want to call myself dumb because that's just not the truth. We know that's not the truth. But I'm just a little out of touch. I live in my own world. And I don't know if I should admit to this again on the internet, but apparently I admit to everything on the internet. And I found out yesterday that the government was shut down. It's like October 8th, maybe 9th today. Didn't know that. Also, how and why? I had 3 people explain it to me, and it was the equivalent of somebody explaining a board game to me or a card game or like telling me how football works. I was lost. Quite frankly, I need to burp. It's been a while since I burped for you. Did you like that? Oh, gross. Did you fucking like that? Huh? Someone needs to take this mic away. Stat. So I found this out because Fort Sumter is closed. And that's all I have to say on that. I just simply don't understand how the entire government shuts down. And there was a girl wearing a shirt that said Daddy's Home. Daddy's Home with Trump on it. You know, we're not here to talk politics, but, you know, if you support Trump, get the fuck on, honestly. It's just, I don't even know that much about politics, and it's laughable to me. We all know where I stand. What am I? Ally. I do this as a joke, like in public, like I'll just go ally. And it looks like I'm doing BLM, but it's just from a video. So, and then this is my new bit that I'm going to also share with the internet because why not? And I bought this fucking mic. Last I checked, I edited this. Thank you. I'm doing this new bit where I run around saying, you one of them fucking liberals? Let me do it better. I can do it better. You one of them fucking liberals? And then I'll be on the street doing that. I am one of those fucking liberals, by the way. You one of them fucking liberals? You fucking libtard? You a pansy? And I run around on the street saying that. And then I go, ally, after. And I'm surprised I haven't been shot dead. Thanks. Okay, last and final point. Maybe? Actually, no. Not last and final point. I finished Wednesday yesterday in 2 days. Remember how I said I was going to save season 2 for a rainy day? Well, it's a rainy day. What am I, fucking weatherman? Come on. It was amazing, I have to say. And you know, every single time I watch Wednesday, I never want it to end. Why do they make 8 episodes of shit? Are y'all fucking delusional? I can watch 8 episodes while I'm taking my morning shit. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And that part pissed me off. And I think I don't want to spoil it. You know, I was going to say a few more things and give you guys my hot take on that. But I just think that you need to go watch Wednesday. You have to. It's just so good. And I think deep in my core, I am like the love child of Agnes. Wait, what the fuck? Why did I not just remember her name? Wednesday's best friend. Damn. I'm cracked out. I'm their love child. Is that weird? And is it because I'm part werewolf, part huntress? Part investigator? And I really felt bad for Thing this season. I always feel bad for Thing, and I think he's like one of my favorite characters. And usually in movies, like or in shows, for instance, Modern Family, I hate when the kids grow up because they're shit actors. And they were cute as kids, and then they grow up and they're low-key shit. Lily, sorry. Love you. I hate Vietnam. Love you, Lily, and I'm really sorry about that. Shit when she grew up, you know, and I'm talking shit now, but that's the way it is. Luke, Manny, don't even get me started on Manny. But anyways, Pugsley grows up. He's not a little boy anymore. And it's just, he did a good job, though. He was still a good actor. And I just don't think they leave room for that puberty to strike because they come on screen after puberty and you're just like, whoa, who the fuck that is? Hey, what are you doing here? You grown man. That's a child's role, you creep. That's what I feel like every time. Okay. Last and final point for warm-ups. I'm an ant. You know, I always plan to be the drunk ant, and that's just not the vibes nowadays. I'm the wholesome almond ant now. And it is the most exciting thing to ever happen to me. I don't think you care much about that. I'm just pumped because, you know, you hit an age where your siblings start having kids and you're just like, we grown. And you're like, all of us survived. I don't know if that's just my family, but I'm just like, we all survived. All of us. We're all alive. Look at us go. And I had a dream last night, actually, y'all, that I met my man. in my dream. And it was so real. I've never seen this man before in my life. And I hope I see this man soon. I really am just reaching. I'm really reaching here. But he was gorgeous and sensitive. And just all around, he was a great guy. He lived in Miami in the dream too. Bonus points. And if you know, you know. So it gave me hope. And we'll get into a little more of why it gave me hope in a minute. But, you know, if I don't dream about him tomorrow, I'm actually putting a cleaver in my brain. Thanks. I was so pissed I woke up, honestly. So, don't know why I shared a couple of very sensitive pieces of information with you. You know how sad my love life is to where I'm dreaming about that. Thanks. My government name. And how I feel about Pugsley. This week, girls, what are we doing here? Why the fuck are you here besides to annoy us and be on the internet? We are talking about the ebbs and flows of alcoholism today. Mostly because guess what, girls? Guess what has happened to me recently? I got in another pit. Yeah. And you know, this happens to me and I'm always pretty transparent. I feel like with you, I come here and I tell you about how I'm feeling. And if I'm not in it, I'm not in it. Sorry, can't fake it anymore. Can't fake it anymore. Like I've lived too many years. If I'm feeling down, like I cannot plaster a smile on this face. I don't know. It's been getting exhausting. And I just had a really down few weeks. Are we surprised? I think for me and my alcoholism, as y'all have seen in my recovery, more so, I go through pretty big cycles. And I feel like this is the same for a lot of people who deal with addiction or in recovery, deal with addiction, deal with alcoholism, or recovering from anything, honestly. And it just like hits a big cycle. I have really, really low lulls and really, really high highs. And I think the misconception is that life is going to be beautiful. And I'm not here to talk about that today because go read a book. If you're curious on getting sober, if you are sober, you know that to be true. And it's probably one of the more daunting things that you face if you're sober curious, if you need to get sober and you're not sure. So we're analyzing a little bit of that today. But just a few things that have happened in my life that I wanted to come clean about, talk to you guys about, and why I was having a tough few weeks there. First, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I think I talked to you about this last week. And if you're on TikTok, you know all about it. My skin, girls. I know. And it's an embarrassing topic for me to talk about because I have had really clear skin in the past. I mean, I've had my breakouts. Yes, of course. I've had my fair share of pimps, girl. But I don't know what happened. It started when I started swimming again. And my skin is the most atrocious it's ever been in my entire life. I don't think that it's fair to act like it's just an ego situation because it's the most frustrating thing. It is an ego situation, actually. It's purely insecurity. Thanks. Don't know why I said that. But I don't think we give it enough space to how frustrating it can be when you're dealing with sour skin. Okay. And I had a few days where I was just straight up crying, honestly. And I tried to compartmentalize it and I did a really good job of just being like, that's literally 1% of you though. And you're great and you're awesome and you're beautiful. But when I look in the mirror, what do I see? Volcanoes. Did not like that. I'm literally 25. Why the fuck is that happening to me? Went to the dermatologist yesterday. We're on some medications. We're getting some creams. We're going to be good, girl. But it was really getting me down. And I don't know. If you've dealt with bad skin, you understand. And if you don't, fuck off. I don't care. And then also, as you all know, I started dating again. We will talk about dating in sobriety again. And me breaking my celibacy, yada, 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 coming up. Did break that. Thanks. Thanks. Yep. Been getting it in, girl. Ew. Sorry. People watch this. I'm so sorry. And first bout, that's my business. That's not going on the internet. But, it came to a close. And I haven't dated in a really long time. And it was just, I don't know, hard for me. Those emotions are new. And they brought up some pretty big traumas in my life that I thought I had dealt with in the past, and I did not deal with them. And I could not articulate my feelings to save my fucking life.
Like I was actually drowning. I was having bad dreams. I was having like anxiety, and I just like could not understand what was happening. And I thankfully was around my friends so often. I wasn't feeling too alone in the process, and I was really open about it, which I am proud of myself for. I was very open with my friends. I articulated to the best of my abilities, honestly, my feelings with people. But it was just really hard and daunting. And, you know, as soon as that kind of chapter closed, I just realized like I did not give up on love, and I cannot give up on love. And I think we require very special people to love us. I think there is only a handful of people that understand us in a certain way, you know, and we have to be willing to search for them. And I can't give up on love, and I can't just be single the rest of my life, as much as I low-key want to. I can't put that in the universe, though. Sorry about that, Queen. So that is a few of the main reasons that I was not feeling up to par. But sometimes in sobriety, there is no reason. And I want you to understand that. In life, there is no reason. We just feel like shit. This is an underlying of a lot of things. And, you know, go watch fucking Mel Robbins if you want to discuss that. I mean, nervous systems, anxieties, depressions, whatever. But sometimes in life, there's just an overlying veil of just general discomfort and sadness. Another thing that I kind of faced was I talked to y'all a lot, especially in the beginning of this podcast earlier in my sobriety, about my purpose. And that was something that was really fucking difficult for me. And I fought tooth and fucking nail to get over that. And to accept life for the experience and what it is. And I wholeheartedly did that. When I came here and talked to y'all about it, I meant every word I said in my healing journey on it. But, you know, it cropped back up. And I think it was, in general, I was battling insecurity. And at the pit of my insecurity lies that purpose issue, you know, and that financial instability issue. Girl, I got money. Don't look at me like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that beast was just awoken because I had put her to sleep and like told her that we're good and that we have reason to live and we have purpose to live and we're striving every day for the best. But, you know, the path I travel it's daunting. It's difficult to say the least. And I was just feeling really hurt. And I think I just want to already be where I'm supposed to be, but that's not how life works. And I'm here to enjoy the journey first and foremost. Number one rule is I have to enjoy that journey. Otherwise, what I get to, the end point, isn't going to be as delicious. You know, it's like reading a good book. That's the whole point. ACOTAR, whole point. The journey is the most delicious part. You get to the end. The ending is amazing because the journey. Do I sound like fucking Miley Cyrus right now, actually? And then kind of the final thing, and this is kind of a life update too today, in some ways and some realizations I've had recently during this particular ebb. It's not a flow. Wasn't a flow. We're back in flow. We're getting back in flow. But realization that I kind of had was my spirituality. As you all know, I don't talk about that shit because I want you to come here as you are. Whatever you believe, whatever you think. I don't really talk much about it. I have a few episodes where I talk about it because I like to be an open book as well. And I want people to see that, you know, you can be anyone and chase sobriety, irregardless what recovery or what certain people say. You can be anyone you want. And that's a choice you get to make. And I, as you all know as well, I am a realist. Yeah, we know. We fucking know. Huge realist this way, girl. And I am very spiritual based. I'll say that much. have always been very spiritual based in terms of meditations, in terms of the universe, stuff like that. And my realism was breathing so loud. And I think because my thoughts were on this like religious cycle, I don't know, it was catching up to me. I was just thinking about it. And like, I'm an existential thinker. I will always think about it. But I have times where it just like really comes up and I'm like thinking about it very deeply. Anywho, my realism bit me in the ass because it was getting to a point, it was so inflamed. I was like, what if meditation doesn't work? You know, like, what if like literally it's nothing? And I'm not going to get too far into that just because like, I don't know who listens to this and like, I'm not doing that, but it was ridiculous. And I sat down in a meeting next to somebody and they said that there was a study done. And essentially, if you look back at all the people who believe in something, whether it's real or not, they are happier people. And I can't subscribe to any religion on that fucking data, honestly, or subscribe to anything like that just because it might make me happier. Like, I can find peace in a lot of other ways, and I have. But it re-sparked the meditation and the spirituality in me. And I was thirsty. I was hungry. I was kind of like fighting on my own in a sense. And I've done that a lot in my sobriety because I never really had a higher power during my sobriety. So I did a lot of fighting on my own. And I knew consciously that I didn't have that and that it was going to be harder for me, and I prepared myself. So if you're somebody like that, prepare yourself for the battle of, not having always something to lean on the same as others while you're building your higher power, while you're finding salvation, whatever that looks like for you personally. And I don't know, it was just like a struggle for me, and I felt really just weird. I don't know. I felt out of it, and I felt confused and so conflicted on what I actually fucking believe. And to other people, that's not as important, but I'm an existential thinker and I love to get to the bottom of things. And that's just the biggest question, I think, is why I get so wound up about it, is like, that's the biggest question for all of humanity. Hello, for life. One of the biggest questions. And I got that back in order. I started meditating again and redialing back in, and I'm like, energy's fucking real. What am I talking about? I don't need to get too far into this. I feel like this is going to bore you talking about this. But, yeah, I was just feeling down and confused about it. And I went and I asked other women for advice. I talked to people in my program. I talked to my friends. I just searched inward, looked really hard inward. And it provided me an ability to see. And I had some other stuff this was just a big clarity ebb for me. And we are about to discuss some of the other reasons that it opened my eyes. But I just had a meditation one day too, where I was sitting there and it was just like a reality hit that like I'm a conscious being, and I have that reality hit me sometimes. And I don't know how to articulate that to you, but it's just like, oh fuck, I'm in there. I'm here like right now. And like, I'm very real. And I think that only happens when I'm feeling down, because that's when my like derealization in a way starts to hit sometimes, where I'm just like, when you're going through the motions constantly, you forget you're there sometimes. And that kind of process was taking hold of me just a little bit. That was quite the tangent. But that's where I was at, you guys, like last week. I was just feeling down. I took a small break from like almost everything. Thankfully, I had pre-filmed some of the podcast, and I was just focusing on my physical health and swimming and going to the gym and like eating right and like trying to meditate and just like, I don't know, I took a little break and I was just feeling defeated. Honestly, I think I was feeling really defeated. And I think, I chose a path of fucking having a podcast, and that's going to make you feel defeated a lot, or like putting content out there and stuff, like in the most saturated place in the actual world ever. And, sometimes you're just going to be a little spacey about that and just be like, what the fuck am I doing? And thankfully, I don't lay in bed at night and think about like something I said on the internet. Once it's up, it's up. Sorry. Don't care. Not thinking about it again. I'm sorry. And so, yeah. But this ebb and flow was a little bit different for me, because typically I look at my ebbs and flows as two separate things, of a high and a low. And this time around, I definitely was able to catch on to the reality at hand, that they are one cohesive group, that the high and the low are together, and grouping them as one versus separate was really good for my mental. I think mostly what hit was that they come into one, the high and the low come into one to create the lesson in that season of life. And that's why I'm ebbing and flowing, is because they come together. And for me, this time, obviously, kind of like stated, it created a lot of clarity. And that was it was very pivotal. It was very transformative. It wasn't like I just went through like a depressive low and a high. It was a transformative, I think, 2 weeks of like my life. Like, I think I might look back at that honestly, because of the realizations I had and because of how deep it was. Yeah, I think I'm just exiting that low with better vision than I've ever had. And even if I don't like it, I didn't like the answers I got, I didn't like the clarity, I didn't like the cleansing, I can see it. And that's the most important part in all of this, is that like I am there through it though. And I see what's happening and I can accept the truth. And that's what's important for me in my personal healing journey. And what keeps me awake is seeing the truth. Whether I don't like it, whether I don't always oblige, whether it takes me several weeks of patience and time to get my ego to calm down, to actually go through with whatever or learn that lesson, it's seeing it. And that is something for me that I pride myself on as a big step moving forward and a good point of healing that I can see, like progress, I guess, that I can actually see I'm making. Even though I know better than to run from the lows, I still do it. In like this hopes that the sky is going to be clear for the rest of my life. And I don't know. I know better for a lot of the shit that I do. And I know for a fact that the storm is going to hit again. Because I act that way, it creates more disparity for the next time and just like more self-doubt. What helped this time was I didn't run from it as fast, because I had that realization that my life is going to be this way. And you can hear that over and over again. You can hear it in the rooms. You can hear it in recovery. You can hear it in other people. But it doesn't matter until you believe it. And it was a moment where I stopped and understood that this is what life is. And I am going to experience it in this way, in these cycles, in these loops. And I think it's like identifying when I'm uncomfy is a shift. And that's growth. It's evidence that I am growing, that I can identify. And I think lows stay low for so long because we are sprinting from them and because we refuse to turn around and look at it. But because we're uncomfy, it's representing that we are growing from that past life. And I think when we're in a season of growth, a season of change, or a season of stability, that happens often because we are recognizing things differently and we can see what is making us so uncomfortable. So, you know, I experience that from time to time and it feels like it's back to back, but that's because I am growing. And I have to recognize it as that, as an opportunity for growth versus letting that ebb, that low, stay there and hang there for so long because I don't have the strength to recognize it for what it is. And that comes with, I think, also wanting to hold on. And that fear of like change in a way, and wanting to hold on to this past life or this past period of time because you're not ready for the new or what's to come. In some ways, the reason that I am able to accept the lows of my sobriety and the lows of life and handle them well, or at least know they're happening, is because I do have an odd relationship to pain. And many of you know that. I had like almost like a love relationship with pain, and I was more comfortable in pain and sorrow than I am happiness. And that's something that still kind of rings true from time to time. I've grown into a new person and I search for peace and serenity and happiness, but that doesn't mean, like, my brain was programmed for years to understand sorrow deeply and that be kind of like my core emotion and kind of in a way my identity. And I was comfortable and in some subconscious way enjoyed the pain. And it was a weird fucked up thing where that's where I felt like I was learning lessons because I was an alcoholic and I wasn't learning them in life. And it made me feel maybe emotionally stable in a way, or not emotionally stable, but emotionally mature. And I wanted to be mature somewhere, but I wasn't ready to grow. And so I think I, in some ways, am lucky on that front to experience that type of relationship with pain because it pushes me into the investigation of lows and it makes it more curiosity based and I have a better understanding versus suffering at the hands of life. So I think that looks different for everyone. And I think how you experience your lows and how you get out of them is different for everyone. But I do think a lot of alcoholics and addicts understand where I'm coming from in terms of that pain. And a lot of people in general. In this recent low, there was something in me that was the most fierce and determined I have ever been. Honestly, I think ever been the most fierce. I think at the beginning of my sobriety, I was excruciatingly fierce too. I think both of those are kind of similar in a way. And it was just a determination to keep going in this low that I had kind of never had. It was an introduction to a new piece of myself that I have been building recently. And I think that really took play with my physical health because it overwhelmed my schedule in some ways to add another component. And I fell in love again with my physical health and of being a strong girl. And it added a layer to my confidence in terms of not how I look, but that I get up and I keep fucking going in a different way. Because emotionally, that is something that I don't have a choice but to do. Emotionally, because I'm an alcoholic. I don't have somewhere to turn. So how I deal with problems is facing them head on. That's just how I do it, because I don't turn around and get somewhere else to kind of lie on. I can talk to other people. And when problems are really big, I try not to be alone. That's where I go. But I have to keep going in my emotions. And I think physically adding that aspect and that component too added this layer of power to me that I have not yet experienced. It made me recognize so much more that pain is temporary. And I've taught y'all that before, and I think that there's a lot of points in ebbs and flows of sobriety that you can go find elsewhere. And I'm talking about it in a personal way today and the way it looks for me. And I've taught y'all that change and those moments of pain or those moments of questions and moments of sorrow are a time period. And once I started labeling those things as a time period, it got so much easier because there is an end in sight. At some point it ends. Through the motions, when you feel like that, feels like such a win. Obviously, I stopped and I listened to my emotions, and that is with a cognitive head on my shoulders at the same time, so not ignoring anything, but continuing to go through the motions against my own will and defying myself in that way really helped me, I think, see things this time. Fierceness and that determination, because honestly, I felt like giving up. Not giving up my sobriety. I didn't feel like giving that up. I think there's underlying questions that exist in every addict and every alcoholic, and I'm not going to pretend I don't have those too. And just underlying things, even when we're good in our sobriety, that we kind of face. I mean, we're complicated people. And I also want to shed light on that I do have questions, and I do have that underlying thing that you might feel that you think no one else feels. I have that too. But I didn't want to give up my sobriety at all. I love my sobriety and I wouldn't be alive without it. And I'm blessed to be sober. I truly am. But give up like kind of the pod and fucking doing all this shit that I fucking do all the time. And it was a big pity party. And I knew I wasn't going to give up. And I know when you feel like giving up, it's most important to not give up then. And I knew that, but I just kind of felt that way. I kept showing up though, for workouts, for filming, for editing, for my friends, for the program, for meetings. I kept fucking showing up. And this time, that new attitude helped. The determination stuff helped because I wasn't trying to get back to where I was. I'm trying to build anew. And that realization really hit me, is that I am building something else. Even if it was a 2-week period that I got through of that pain and I feel like I can go back to exactly where I was, it was causing some form of discomfort. Like we talked about earlier, I'm recognizing where I am uncomfortable because I'm growing out of it. It's like growing out of your old clothes. And that's exactly what's happening to me. And I need to provide something that's new. And I don't know in what way this happens and how I make this work, but this needs to feel good to me again. And the things that I love don't hurt me. The way that my life is structured are my favorite things in the world. I keep them close to me for a reason. And so I don't want to misidentify this sorrow and this pain as things that I love. And that's not fair. And I think we do that even with people during those times because we question, do we actually love this shit if we feel this way? Do I love the things around me? You do. You were struggling emotionally. And I didn't want to misplace that identity. And get confused and lost and feel like I'm not the same person anymore, because that's just not the truth, and that I don't love the same things anymore. So I think it's important to recognize when you're going through ebbs and flows that you're not going to, don't try to get back to the same high. Don't try to get back to the same thing. Build anew. And it revisits you as you keep going. But I think that's an important point to make today, and something I want you to leave with. And this was also the first time innately that I was able to label thoughts and feelings not as my own. Innately. I can combat that, and I've done that in different kind of scenarios in my life. But in terms of an ebb and flow, I guess, situation, or a long state of just being pissed the fuck off, uncomfortable, discontent, thanks, that those feelings and those thoughts are not mine. And I was presented with that, I think, through the fierceness and through the determination, that this is not fucking me. And these weird thoughts I'm having, these great insecurities, certain things, that's not fucking me. What I am is a fighter. What I am is a winner. And I've shown that to myself over the past year, over and over again. And when I get down on myself, it's like, look what you fucking done though. What are you even fucking talking about? That isn't you with these ideas and these thoughts. I knew inside that it was self-doubt, innately. And that was a gift, I think, this ebb and flow for real. And at the pit of me battling my insecurity during this little bout was a new level of confidence I have never seen before. And that's why I'm able to, honestly, during that pit, I didn't film because I could not sit in front of a camera because of my skin. Sorry. And you know, I had a moment yesterday where I went to the dermatologist, and it's next to a dialysis place. My grandpa went through dialysis, and I know a lot of people who have done that in my life. And it's so sad and horrible, dialysis is. And my problems are so small. People say that on the internet, and it's so real. I had that moment yesterday where it was just like and I think it helped me really snap out of stuff. It's just, my problems are so small, and I understand that. I understand it's a blessing that, you know, I wouldn't want to sit here and film because of my skin, and that's kind of one of the biggest things I'm facing. But it's important that I recognize my emotions, and that every feeling that I feel is valid. And if I feel upset, it's valid, period, point blank. It doesn't matter if it's small. It does not matter if it's big. Even though I haven't accomplished much in my life, I say as a year sober, like, what the fuck am I talking about? I am so far from being a failure. And I needed to recognize that in me alone, not because somebody else told me that, but because I mean it. And because I can look in the mirror and see her. And that's that clarity coming in where, like, I exist though. And like that clarity of seeing all encompassing, like, you know, like actually seeing, like, you're looking at her though. That's the girl that's a year sober, that's worked so hard on this podcast, that has gotten her physical health back in order, gotten her familial ties back in order, gotten her finances back in order. That's her standing right there. And you're mad because, you know, she doesn't have the best skin. She's struggling to date again and going through very like fucking normal life things. Wow. Now that I'm sitting here assessing this, it's so puberty. I am so puberty right now. Stop. I'm crying at that. I don't know. I think I am most proud when I get up and I keep fucking going. I think every human is, and we don't give ourselves maybe the chance or the room to try that. But getting up and keeping going that's the tea, girl. That's the tea right there. And I'm not aiming for comfort. If we're being completely honest, I'm not aiming for smile. I'm not aiming for comfort. I'm aiming for fucking success. And that comes with sacrifice, and it comes with failure. Aiming for something so much bigger. And that is something that I can accept, and what allows me to get those extra reps in. And I'm not talking just at the gym. I'm talking emotionally, the podcast, everything, those extra reps in life that feel mundane and that feel empty without a purpose. That's where we struggle. And that's where sometimes the bottle hits, or where we question those questions that we have underlying. We kind of go back to, and we're like, fuck, should I drink? Should I act this way? Should I go back on my morals? Should I do whatever? No, that's when those extra reps count. And that's how I've been getting through them, especially recently, is that, you know, I'm fighting for something so much bigger than comfort. I'm fighting for something so much bigger than me, so much bigger than sometimes even peace. And that is a resilience that I tied to myself, and that's a personal thing for my brain that really helps during those times. And I don't mean to sound that way about peace. Peace, y'all know, is first and foremost. What I lean on during the times of trouble and during the lows is an indicator of my soul and how upset and in duress I actually am. So, because in my past life, when I'm running for problems, I'm leaning heavy on alcohol. I remember there was like weeks at a time last April was it last April? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. When I was still drinking. And that was just like the worst I've ever experienced. Like, I think back to them and I was drunk the entire, like, I mean, this was leading up to getting sober, and that whole time I was drunk, but it was just like this next level drunkenness that I was going through so much pain, and I know that to be true. And like looking back, and I don't know, it's just, that's how I always did things, was like, I was just so confused and I couldn't understand, like a child in some ways. And I'm not calling alcoholism a child, but that's kind of where we are emotionally, if we're being so for real and honest with ourselves, because we cannot recognize things and we cannot see that we are in deep pain. Anywho, during this period too, I saw major growth in myself, because what I leaned on and what I searched for in peace was smaller and smaller. It was that cup of coffee, that extra, going to spend that extra $4. There were several days where I was just really excited for my morning routine and my nighttime routine. And that's fine. And that's what I was kind of living for, honestly, because the in-between was just not serving me. I was outgrowing it, and it was just not serving me, period. But I fought though. Thanks. What was that sass, that head bob? Okay, girl, get a grip. But it was an indication, because too, sometimes in those lows, and I have lows where I really lean on food. I really lean on nicotine. I really lean on scrolling. A lot of it can be scrolling for hours and hours, because I just can't face it. I can't face my problems. And somewhere in my ego, I allow it to happen, where it's just like, fuck that. I'm leaning really hard on this shit. And this time around, it was more, I was facing things for real head on. And I could tell, because I wasn't leaning so hard into my vape and so hard into my phone and so hard into food. I was leaning into the things, into my tools, honestly, and to the things in life that actually genuinely provide me peace. And they were small. They weren't big. They weren't going and spending all my money. They weren't making sure I'm with my friends at all times. They weren't going to my favorite places. They were small. And I think that's a beautiful indication for myself to remember that I do think life is beautiful. And I get scared that I'm going back into my depressions, or going back into what I think I really feel about life, what I felt before my alcoholism. And that's ugly. It was ugly. And I didn't want to be alive, and I didn't feel a certain way about life that I do feel now. And that's me combating my thoughts. And that's proof there that, I am not my thoughts. I'm not. And I do find life to be precious, because I find these small things to be precious. And sometimes and this is true, I still get this, where you look around being sober up at the sky, and it's just like dancing. Like, I don't know, like sometimes I feel high, and that is true to this day. Like, not every day, don't get me wrong, but I have these recognizable moments where I'm like, I'm sober and I'm fucking high. That's how it feels. And I don't know, I had that clarity. I don't know how to describe that, but that was just like a really important thing to recognize when I was feeling down, to just go outside and look at the fucking sky and see the clouds and the color and like how vibrant it is, because I'm in a healthy brain, and it provided me with peace. I don't know if that's something that you could take away. And it's important to recognize that, like, I'm not broken or confused during this low. I just can't see. That's all that's happening. My goal needs to be on seeing. My goal is not if I'm broken or confused. This was another realization that I kind of had. I only have so much time today, and I have so many fucking notes to get through, so we might have to do another second on this episode, part 2 or something. But a realization that I had that I wanted to bring to you today that I think would be mighty helpful. Mighty helpful? What the fuck? Girl, what the fuck? You been eating your spinach or what? Damn. Is my goals, and this might go for you, so your goals are not working because you already have goals in place. My goals were not working because I already had goals in place. I was already fixated. You were already fixated on whatever it is that is actually the task at hand, which is you staying alive, staying afloat emotionally. These are subconscious goals that we have. For instance, mine was drinking. I would plant goals out in front of me, not during this time. I'll explain what mine were during this period of time, but during my drinking days, that was my goal. My goals are taken up. I am busy and fixated on that thing. That's why my goals never worked out for me, because I already have some. I'm good. I'm trying my hardest right now to stay afloat.
Or it's that man underlying, that's all you're thinking about, underlying, that's all you're doing. So those goals aren't working out for you because you are fixated. It's kind of like when a monster, there's so many monsters I could use as an example right now, but a monster has a fixation on one person, one thing. It's not going to see the rest of those goals and the rest of everything else around it. It is on autopilot for the mass destruction of that being, of that thing. And that goes for you and your goals. I think it's a false programming that, because these are the goals that keep us alive, right? And it's this false programming that you have accepted those into the subconscious as your goal. I'm trying to articulate this best I can. So maybe it's even beauty. Maybe like for me, half my fucking goal was getting my skin clear, and it was occupying my thoughts constantly. And that is a subconscious acceptance of a goal that does not need to be there. Okay? i.e. false programming. Becoming your actual goal, whether it's financial, whether it's sobriety, whether it's career-based, whether it's health-based, whatever it is sacrifice to accept that as your new goal, because they are becoming the thing that keeps you alive. I feel like that's what goals really are. It's what is keeping you alive, and that's what's keeping you pushing forward, because our goals have been misconstrued as what is keeping us alive. And maybe that's for me with an addict brain. The next thing that is going to keep me awake and keep me in this game and keep me alive is kind of what goals look like. Does this make sense? I don't know if I'm saying this well enough. So during this time period for me, my goals were about a boy a little bit, honestly, and definitely my body. I was struggling. And I think my insecurities just popped up, kind of like we talked about. Oh, Ellie just did the sweetest stretch, big stretch. My goals were preoccupied. The podcast was like kind of falling to the wayside just a little bit because I was feeling insecure, obviously, Jesus fuck. And I had other goals in place. My goals were so much different. And so then I'm just like checking off boxes and fitting stuff in. We only have room for so many goals, and they need to stay there upright as the main thing. And I'm sorry, that's a sacrifice that you have to be willing to make, that nothing else is coming in the way of that. And when you're fixated like that, then you have time for other shit on the side because you know your main things are taken care of. And I had to invite a new flow in. Obviously, what I've been doing, that new flow needs to be invited in. And that was reanalyzing my goals and remembering how much I enjoy sacrificing everything for them. Whether I think I do or I don't, it's the truth. And that is where I'm happiest, where I get back up, my determination, where I'm sacrificing everything for something. And that has always been the structure of my brain and how I keep myself alive. But I had to analyze who I am and what I want, period. And I feel like when you ask that question honestly, that's how you can get out of those lows. Who I am and what the fuck do I want? It's like your own pep talk in a way, because when you write that down, when you see that, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore that. And I find that's often what really helps me in my lows, is that those questions. And the answer sometimes surprises me. The answer is sometimes not what I thought the answer was going to be, because self can't see self. And sometimes we think we know ourselves, but we're not listening. And we're placing this identity on her. Yeah, we know her. We know what she wants. But it's like, listen, maybe that's not it. Maybe that's not it. And I kind of surprised myself too when I redid this last one. It wasn't the answers that I was getting. I had labeled her. I think I had labeled myself as to what I want and who I am. And it just wasn't the truth. And that's where that clarity, I think, respiked. And it was a new level of like emotional cognition, I guess, in a way. I don't know, that like I could really see. Some other things that really helped me in this ebb and flow was each day, for some reason, I was remembering the day before and refraining from things that made me feel like shit. And it was a level of seeing. It was that clarity coming into play. Or the next day I woke up and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't do that thing that made me feel like shit. Versus like replaying the same kind of insane song of like doing the same shit, expecting different results, and remembering the past feeling that I was left with from something was just really pivotal for me. And it really helped me out of that low. And also, and this was yesterday, I had a horrible day. I cannot lie to you. I had a shit day, girl. I just had a bad day. I really did. Day before I had a shit day too. Day before that was okay, but I had a shit day. And I just had like kind of a shit week, if we're being so for real, which sucks
but it is what it is. And I kept this isn't me like trying to brag or nothing, but I kept waking up, like going to bed thinking tomorrow's going to be so much better. So much fucking better. And like wake up, it sucked. It wasn't better. Like yesterday, I got annoyed with it a little bit because I'm like, tomorrow has to be better though. And today is already better. I already feel better. Today is better. But it was just like, I don't know. I kept having this faith that the next day was going to be good, that it was a new day. That was important to me. And you know, that I always lived by this in my sobriety, and it was always cheesy to me, but like you never know what is going to do your saving and which day might bring you your saving grace. And that can be on a big term, that can be on a small term, just getting you out of a low. And I had faith that one of these days was going to bring it, and it did. And excited to go to bed and wake up again because I knew it was a fresh start. And there's like a relentless hope in that I am very grateful to be instilled. And I think that came from me reuniting with my spirituality a lot too. And that type of faith was what had diminished in me. Also really over communicating with people my feelings. I don't know, something clicked, and there was a clarity that, because in the beginning of this low, I was communicating these feelings that I wouldn't naturally communicate, or that were harder. I do communicate them because I choose to work my program and I know I'm supposed to, but it sucks. I don't know. That's a part of sobriety that's hard for me. And y'all know has always been hard for me, is expressing my feelings and opening up to people about things that I feel. Sorry. And I wanted to at the beginning of this low. It was something natural. And because I finally understood, and I think I took this away from dating a little bit, like I just communicate the way I feel. And it gives me space to breathe. I'm telling people I'm having a bad day. I'm telling people I'm low for this reason. I don't feel good for this reason. Lay out the actual reason instead of just saying I don't feel good. And I feel so much better. And it gives me this whole extra room of space because others around me are going to be more gentle. And they are going to take that into consideration, that I'm not doing the best. And I didn't show up my best today. And it elicited a great bout of communication through the entire low, where at my lowest, I was still saying that though. And I know that's obvious, and I know we have discussed that before, but it was just a lot easier this time. And I was very open with my communication. And I think that should be a priority for you in your low, whether you're getting out of it, whether you're not, whether it's you talking about your feelings, or whether it's you just opening up the concept that you don't feel good. That's it. And you might not want to go into great detail. You might not want to go into great depth, but you just want to let that person know. I wrote this down, and I liked this, that, you know, I didn't have to have hope because it's just the truth that things would get better. You don't have to have hope. It's just the truth. And that's having faith in the fact things get better and the natural course of life. That's not religion. That's not philosophy. That's not spirituality. That's truth. Things get better at some point. You have too many days. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And I liked that I didn't have, it's almost like when you come into the program, you don't have to have strength. You can borrow other people's strength. Other people are there for you. You don't have to have the full strength. You don't have to have the hope. It just exists. It's something that exists. Whether you want to believe that or see that right now is not, one day you will. And I just really liked that. I did have a moment where I understood that to be true, where it was a hope that was instilled in me that brought me a peace and a sensation that, you know, this time would end. And I was uncomfortable this time. I think there are certain days where I experience pain, where I experience sadness, that I look back, and because of my relationship with pain, I low-key like, and I have memory of, and I can remember the day because it's a comfortable feeling. And I was not having that. I had a few days off. I didn't feel good, low-key, emotionally, and I did not like the day. The whole day was kind of like tainted. When I look back, I'm like, not my favorite. Not my favorite. I don't know also how to articulate that better, but it was proof of growth in me too, that I don't want to ever feel that way. And it's not okay I feel that way. Okay, camera died and it's going to die again. But that's all I will say too, the obvious answer and what you should take away is to stay in your meetings, stay in your recovery, and keep going fucking harder. And take the breaks when you need them. That's how you gain clarity and how you listen to yourself. So, yeah, those are the obvious answers. Use your tools. But I love you guys, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.